Good afternoon. This is the Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON. I'm Cliff Kelley. It's Thursday, April 19th. We are on iHeartRadio. All you need to do is download the app to your smartphone or tablet and take us with you wherever you're going, wherever, and we just want you to be with us. You can also go to WVON.com. When you do that, we always ask that you participate in the daily listener poll and view our current video. And of course, you can call us direct, 773-591-1690, and you can get social, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Well, you know what we do on 3:30, the 3:30 Focus, one of my favorite times on the radio, because we have our good friend, none other than Theodore London. We all know as Ted.
That's Ted.
With our neighbor with law offices at 1718 East 87th Street, right across Stony Island, of course. Telephone number 773-721-3333. And I know he does a good job because people tell me that I send that. Yeah, he does a great job. Otherwise, they'd come back and do something bad to me. So I just want you to continue to do that. How are you?
Well, Cliff, again, it's Thursday, 3:30. I'm with Cliff Kelley, the WVON family. Of course, it's a pleasure and a privilege to be here with you. Thanks for having me again today, Cliff.
Great.
Thank you.
We've got a special guest here, so we're going to do some things a little differently.
That is true. But before we get to our special guest, and he is indeed a special guest, we're going to go to Shay. Shay's our social media coordinator, and she's going to tell you about some of the things we're having going on.
Right. Hi, Shay.
Hi.
Good.
Hello, everyone. So this evening, we have a couple of events going on, but the first one is this evening. There is a financial fair that Attorney London will be speaking at. It is hosted by the Chicago Area Alliance of Black Educators. This is a free event that's open to the public, so if you are a working educator or retired, please come to Park Manor Elementary School. We have some great information. Attorney London will be speaking at 5 o'clock today. We also have
Shay,
tell us where?
Yeah, where's that located?
Oh, that is located 7037 South Rhodes at Park Manor Elementary School.
Great.
So it starts at 4 o'clock, it ends at 7 o'clock, and Attorney London will be speaking at 5 o'clock today.
Great.
Our next event is actually tomorrow. Attorney London will be speaking with blackdoctors.org on Facebook Live, so tune into their Facebook page for Financial Literacy Month. So if you cannot come to the event tonight, you can definitely tune into Facebook Live tomorrow, and Attorney London will be speaking at noon about estate planning as well. We have one more event coming up, the BJ's Market Estate Planning Seminar, hosted by Attorney Theodore London and Chicago Title Land Trust Company. That is on Thursday, April 26th, from 6 to 7:30. There is a free dinner that will be there, as well as Attorney London speaking. Please call our office to RSVP. The RSVPs are filling up quickly, so please call our office at 773-721-3333.
Great, Shay. Do I need to call?
I think you can walk in, Cliff.
I love that, as I have done before, because you have great crowds. You're such a great speaker. And the food's good.
The food's good.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, Cliff, you know what? Typically you come after you get off the air, and so
Right.
you get there maybe about 6:30 or so. And of course, whenever you walk into the restaurant, everything stops. And so we have to stop, and everyone have to greet Cliff and take pictures and practically sign autographs. So it's always good to see
We
you.
have fun. Love it.
Yes, indeed.
Great. So we have a special guest today.
We do have a special guest.
Right.
Although David is a special guest, he is not a new guest. David
That's
is
right.
on
He
with us
certainly is.
regularly. So we have Mr. David Lanciotti, General Counsel and Executive Vice President at Chicago Title Land Trust. And so it's always a pleasure to have David here. He shares so much great information. And again, we can't thank Chicago Title Land Trust enough and David Lanciotti for sponsoring what we do here at WVON. They make it possible for us to share the information with the African American community about some really, really important things as it relates to estate planning. So, Mr. David Lanciotti, thanks so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you, Ted. Thank you, Cliff, for having me today. It's always a pleasure coming on here and sharing the information. But today, even better, when Ted told me what the topic was going to be. Ted will get into it a little more, but I have seen some situations where people did not have the talk that they needed to have about their financial affairs. And that's going to be a topic today, and I'll let Ted get into that a little bit, but I was glad to be here for this one. This can really help people.
We're happy to have you here. Again,
I'm glad to see you again too, David. Yeah.
what Dave was talking about, Cliff, what we talked about last Thursday, and we'll be talking about it more and more in the coming weeks and months, is the talk. Again, we want to encourage people to have the talk with their family. We know sometimes it's difficult. We know sometimes people don't know how to initiate the conversation. Mm-hmm. And we know sometimes even having the talk, it implies that someone may be ill or someone may have the idea of passing away on their mind. But that's not what the talk is about. The talk is about making sure that our families and loved ones have information about who's going to get our home, about who's going to be able to make decisions for us if we need someone to do that, about who's going to get the money. Before we get into that, Cliff, I have to answer the question that a caller asked last week, Denise, and that was about the James Brown matter. So remember the caller called last week, her name was Denise, and she inquired about why was James Brown's trust breached. And I didn't have the answer for that question last week, and I told her and promised her that I would respond and answer today, so I have the answer. So the reality is James Brown had a will and a trust. He had a will prepared, and then later he had a irrevocable living trust prepared by another attorney. In the will, he left all, according to the information I gathered, he left all of his personal property, clothes, jewelry, etc., to his family. He had 6 children, he had 3 wives, and a number of de facto wives. They estimated that his personal property would to be about $2 million. He had a living trust where he left all of his rights to his music to a charity to benefit children, black and white, for scholarships. It was a very complicated matter. Ultimately, the Attorney General of South Carolina got involved and brokered a deal, and with the family, with the charity, and ultimately, when it went back to the court for approval, the court basically said, "No, we're not going to honor this agreement that the Attorney General broke with the family," because they said that, again, that didn't adhere to what the trust said. So, Denise, it wasn't that the trust was breached, it's that the agreement that was brokered by the Attorney General of South Carolina was not adhered to. Ultimately, that matter was remanded back to the court, and they're still in court trying to determine who's going to get the rights to the music and who's going to get the property. So, again, it was very complicated. He had a lot of families, multiple lawyers, multiple wives, multiple children. We do know also that his most recent wife was married to someone at the same time, so they didn't know if that marriage was legitimate or valid or not. So very complicated, but again, just to be clear, that breach was not trust. The agreement that was broken by the Attorney General was not upheld. And so, again, that's why that matter is still
Denise, you got an answer.
In probate court now.
Yeah, that's right. And if they had hired you, they wouldn't have all that.
Well, that's the complicated matter.
That's right.
But anyway, I'd like to get back to David because, again, the talk, because David was sharing some personal information about, if you don't mind sharing that, David, about what you were telling me.
Yeah, well, Ted, before the show, we were waiting to come on, and Ted started telling me about the talk, and people need to have this talk. Excuse me, I said that's interesting because just last week my mother-in-law had to go into a home. She was diagnosed with cancer. She had got sick, and she had put it off the powers of attorney her whole life. My wife and her sister at every turn were stopped, and the people at the hospital, the people at the financial institution said, "I cannot deal with you. I need you to have a power of attorney." The time to make those decisions is not when everything else is going on after the person is having problems and sick. And, to see it hit that close to home, Ted, if it's happening to me, it's happening to a ton of people out there.
It absolutely is. And that's one of the reasons, again, we're so happy to be partnering with Chicago Title Land Trust because, again, it gives us the opportunity, Cliff, to share information with the African American community. And, again, we've had a long partnership with Chicago Title Land Trust as well, and we've been very successful, really, in encouraging African American people to get their estate planning done, and many have. Now we're trying to go even a step beyond just getting the estate planning done. We want to encourage African American people, families, family members to have the talk with their families. It's so important. If we don't have the talk, so much money is lost in the whole probate process. One of the things that I do, Cliff, and I share this with the listeners, when my wife and I, Kelley, travel, I always go to the local courthouses, whether it's in Scottsdale, Arizona, Dallas, Atlanta, Houston. When I make it to Miami, we normally don't make it to the court because the weather's so nice there, so typically not there. But in any jurisdiction that we go to, when I go to the probate court just to hear the cases, they're all the same. People are feuding because they didn't do proper estate planning. One other quick thing before we get back to you, David. If many of you or any of you read the article in the Sun-Times last week, it was Mary Mitchell's column about, I think it was Miss Isola. And in the article, they talked about her passing away and that she didn't have any estate planning, and it became very chaotic in the last days and years of her life. So again, we can
own the restaurant.
Own the restaurant, the famous Isola's
right.
landmark restaurant in the African American community for decades.
I used to go in there a lot.
And so Mary Mitchell wrote a column about her last Thursday about just the fact that she wasn't prepared.
Yeah.
And again, one of the reasons why we talk about this so much, and we have David on, is to again encourage African American people to have the talk with their families about a number of things. David, in your opinion, what are some of the other things that families should be having the talk about?
Well, there's the financial talk, obviously, and part of that financial talk, Ted, you're hitting all the right things. They should talk about their entire financial picture. You don't want your children not to know that when you pass away or as you near the end of life and need them to help you with your care. So that's one thing. But another thing is, with respect to the talk, Ted, I told you, I think there's two parts to the talk. The family needs to have that talk together as a group. And then one of the parts of that discussion needs to be, who's going to be our attorney? Who's going to be our advisor? Who do we trust to give us, number one, an independent view of our finances, and number two, tell us how to negotiate the legal part of it, so I don't wind up with what James Brown had in being back in probate court because I have too many documents that aren't clear. So the talk, to me, has two parts. First, it's the talk with the family, which that can be emotional, it can be difficult, but it should be done. And then part of that talk should be, who's going to guide us through this process? Who is the professional to guide us through this process? So that is an important part of it that I see neglected from time to time.
Well, you know what? Here's the good news, Cliff and David and Shay. One of the things is that Chicago Title Land Trust makes it so easy for us, particularly homeowners, because again, we know that we can put the real estate in a land trust. We know that the person is going to continue to own it, control it until respectfully they pass away. And then the transition is so easy to whoever they name as the person that's going to get the property after them. It's going to save them the cost, time, and money of going through the probate process. David, will you tell us about what's the process when someone has a land trust and they go to heaven? What's the process of their heirs or the named beneficiaries becoming the beneficiaries?
Even if they don't go to heaven.
Even if they don't go to heaven. Even if they don't go to heaven, if they have a trust with us, it is a very simple process. They come into our office. We have a form ready. Sign off on this form. You are the owner of the property. I have seen that transfer take place inside a half an hour if somebody comes in with a death certificate into our office. Conversely, you have the probate court process, which can last years. It can cost thousands of dollars. This is the way to go. It's a simpler way. There are other ways to pass the property with the land trust. With what Ted will advise, it won't be thousands of dollars, and you won't be going to the probate court.
And I had a case just right before I came to the office today. A lady's mom passed away in 2008 and didn't go through the probate process. She now she wants to go through the probate process. It's very complicated. Two of her siblings have passed away. Now their kids are going to get a interest in the property as well. It's only two of the kids that have any money to pay for the whole probate process in itself, and it becomes very, very complicated for this family. This is not uncommon. Again, that's why we spend so much time and take so much time to encourage again, the listeners, not only for the benefit of the listeners, but we also encourage the listeners to share this information with your families, with your friends, with your neighbors, with your parents and grandparents, because they may not have the opportunity to be listening today, but you do. So make sure that you share the information.
And when you talk about the folks going to heaven, that's great. And the ones who aren't, you can tell them to get an asbestos suit.
Well, Cliff, all of our clients go to heaven. We have the best clients.
The clients, yes. I'm talking about some of the
other people.
Yeah.
One other quick story. I had a client that came in earlier this week. To her surprise, when her parents passed away, the sister had taken out a $240,000 loan on a property that the family's had since 1972. The sister's not paying the mortgage. The house is in foreclosure, and it appears that a home that's been in the family for over 4 decades is going to be lost because she's saying that the sister coerced her parents and or either forged the documents, but did get the $240,000. I saw the documents. That's one of the other benefits of a land trust. If you have it in a land trust, it's another layer against even family members taking advantage of moms and dads and grandparents.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting. And that's very important because when we started this show, and you know how long ago that was, David, we talked about that very thing. I had been in situations when people come in with a stick-em. Mom wanted me to have this table. You know, I mean, just unbelievable things.
Well, I mean, when I started coming on the show several years ago, it was just off the downturn in the real estate market. And one of the biggest problems was real estate and mortgage fraud. And people have been trying to figure out ways to protect themselves since.
And you know, there's still real estate fraud going on out here. So listeners, please be careful, please be mindful before you're signing any documents relating to the transfer of your home or mortgages or loans. Please be careful. Seek counsel from an independent lawyer from the transaction.
Our number, of course, is 591-1690. Let's take a call. Bernadette is calling. Hi, Bernadette. How you doing? Good. Mm-hmm.
David, why don't you speak to that?
Yeah, transfer on death instrument passes property, real estate, only residential real estate, after you die to a named successor. In that respect, it's like a living trust, it's like a land trust, it's in some ways like a will. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they can be a problem.
Yeah, right.
Well, I will tell you, the transfer on death instrument won't protect you from that. And that's one thing I'd like to say is that if you're considering a transfer on death instrument, I know that there are a lot of people who have been, the legislation is relatively new, and so people have picked up on it. You still need to talk to an attorney because, for instance, a land trust gives you liability protection that a transfer on death instrument cannot give. A land trust gives you privacy that a transfer on death instrument does not give. And so I don't have a problem with these people suggesting transfer on death instruments. What I do have a problem is people recommending them without telling them the full picture like an independent attorney would do. And so you really need to know, yeah. I wouldn't say without any difficulty on the transfer on death side. You will need to retain legal counsel, likely even after the death, to file the documents you need to inherit the property. There's steps after the death.
Okay.
Gotcha.
I do even better than that, Bernadette. Just simply call 773-721-3333 and get.
Well, that's what Bernadette really needs. She needs to sit down with somebody, explain her financial situation, and get the options.
Let someone understand what the objective is. Typically, I ask my clients, what are you really trying to achieve? Oftentimes, it's more than just transferring the property to one party from another. Oftentimes, again, it's privacy. Oftentimes, you're trying to protect the property against judgments, liens, Medicaid spin downs. Transfer on death does not do that.
Right, exactly. That's an important issue.
Very important. Very important.
Yeah. We have a couple of minutes left, Counselor.
Well, David, let's give David an opportunity to share some final thoughts.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no. The way I'd wrap this up is with the talk. I mean, the talk is essential. The one thing I wanted to make sure is that part of the talk needs to be who's going to be our trusted advisor. That should be part of the talk. Part of the talk should be, here's what my finances are, here's what I'm leaving, here's where the documents are when you need them, and then the next step is, who are we going to talk to who we trust? Who we trust to put forth our financial information and lead us down this legally complicated maze.
And particularly, if I may, Cliff, people who probably need to have this talk sooner rather than later, again, those who own their homes outright, those who are 70 years old or older, those who have been married for at least 40 years, those who have been retired for at least 10 years, those who are single, no children, never been married. Some of you need to have the talk urgently. So to those of you, please, stop hesitating, stop procrastinating, get it done. It's painless, really. We're nice people at our office.
You're wonderful people at your office.
We get to work with David Lanciotti and his team. They're very nice people.
Yes, they are.
So we make it a very seamless, effortless process. You don't have to bring any documents at all. We take care of everything for you. So again, please stop procrastinating. Have the talk with your family.
773-721-3333, and of course the office address is 1718 East 87th Street. You go in there, you meet great people, because they do all kinds of work. You've got some great staff folks there. And plus that, you give away free candy.
You know what, can I just say quickly before we leave, Cliff, again, if you want to join us this evening, particularly for your educated, retired, or working, 7037 South Roads, Park Manor School. Please join us tomorrow at blackdoctors.org at 12 o'clock. And then for those of you who want to join us next Thursday, BJ's Market, a estate planning seminar sponsored by Chicago Title Land Trust. Ted London will be there sharing some information about estate planning. And for those of you who attend, there are going to be prizes and there's going to be huge discounts on your estate planning. So if you plan on getting estate planning, please join us next Thursday. Take advantage of that. You do have to call in 773-721-3333 to RSVP.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Great to
you.
see you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Stay with us now. Let's go get the latest in the traffic and the weather with Robin, and then the top of the hour news.
Thanks so much for joining us today. Of course, we have David Lanciotti, Mr. Cliff Kelley.
Great to be here.
We'll see you next week.